writers. You're listening to the Kobo Writing Life podcast, where we bring you insights and inspiration for growing your self-publishing business. We're your hosts. I'm Vanessa, author engagement specialist.
And I'm Rachel, author engagement manager at Kobo Writing Life. On today's episode, we had a lovely conversation with Skye MacKinnon, who is an indie author who loves helping other writers succeed with self-publishing. She is a champion of publishing as wide as possible, which includes translations to reach even more readers. After a career in science journalism, she now writes romance full-time under various pen names with over 70 novels published. To relax, she also publishes whimsical children's books as Isla Wynter. Having lived in various countries before settling in Scotland, she has a unique international perspective on publishing, and her books have been translated into 5 languages.
As an author who has been wide for some time, Skye came to us with a wealth of knowledge and experience. We chatted about how her former career as a journalist has influenced and impacted her career as a writer. She told us how she prioritizes work and different pen names to avoid burning herself out, and she gave us some great insights into how she approaches international markets and translations. We also talked about why being a wide author is so important to her and her career as an author. There's so much great information here regardless of where you are in your author journey. We hope you learn a lot and enjoy.
We are joined today on the Kobo Writing Life podcast with author Skye MacKinnon. Skye, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Very excited to chat with you about all things in your publishing career. But to kick things off for our listeners who might not know you, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you became an author?
Yeah, so I write romance as Skye MacKinnon. I've been doing it now for close to 9 years. It's my anniversary next month. So yeah, it's been a while. I also write kids' books as Isla Wynter, and I've got about 3 or 4 other pen names just lying around. There's always new ones. I get bored very quickly, so I always have to have new projects. I started writing way before I actually started publishing. But I was always told you can't be a writer, so get a proper job. So I became a journalist, which was still writing, just not the kind of fun writing. And at some point I was just like, no, I'll actually try this writing thing after I'd met some other authors and realized they are human and not these mythical beings that are like kind of gone to private school and elite universities. And no, they're actually normal. So I tried it and it worked. And I've been a full-time author for 8 years now. So yeah, it's been a great journey.
As you just mentioned, you had a career beforehand in science journalism, which I think is insane. But how did that shape the way that you approached writing fiction and actually publishing your novels?
I'm very fast in sort of writing and editing because I used to have to be when there was a deadline. So I write very clean, which is a big bonus. I'm not someone who does like 5 drafts. My first draft is very clean and just needs a bit of editing usually. So, and especially over the years, you just get better at that anyway. I do a lot of research, even for my romantasy or alien romance. So if there's something to do with like physics on an alien planet, I will usually look it up and I will get lost and I will spend hours or days on finding out how the clouds would look like on that planet and then realize it's actually just one little sentence in the entire book. But I get lost in those kind of things. So I think those are the main things. I am quite organized. Like you wouldn't think so if you looked at my office. It's an absolute, chaos. But my computer is ridiculously organized. So many folders, everything is like labeled, so many spreadsheets. Because I'm just used to working on lots of projects at the same time. And otherwise I would just lose my mind.
Now, journalism, from what I understand, is a very deadline-driven profession. When you're an indie author, everything kind of exists on your own schedule. Do you have to still have self-imposed deadlines to get things done? Like, how did that transition work for you?
Oh, yeah, I definitely need deadlines. Otherwise, I get absolutely nothing done. I think in the beginning, I kind of overdid it. I would just put up a book a month for pre-order. And it worked for the first 3 or 4 years. And at some point, I burnt out and realized that's not sustainable. So then I became a bit better at leaving longer deadlines or just breaking it up a little, doing some more self-care. But there's definitely lots of deadlines, lots of notes. I need to do ABC by then. Doesn't always work. To be fair, most of the time it doesn't work because I come up with a new project that needs to be fitted in. I had that last year where everything was perfectly scheduled and all the releases were planned out. And then one book ended up double the length it was supposed to be. Then I had to add a spin-off. And then suddenly everything else that had been like so well planned, it was like dominoes falling. And I was just scrambling for 3 or 4 months in a row to get those books done. So planning is good, but reality will just quite often burn those plans and then throw them away and then torture them. And it's just, it doesn't work in my life. So I always have good intentions, but they very rarely actually work the way I planned.
I feel like that's always the case. Reality is always a fickle mistress, if you will. But as one of the co-hosts of the podcast, I have the pleasure of chatting with a lot of authors. And burnout is a topic that's coming up more and more recently, especially as I think there's a little bit of a movement away from rapid release and more in like self-care and trying to avoid burnout. And I'm curious if you have any tips for any authors who are starting out or any long-term authors who are kind of facing that burnout wall and just kind of how you avoid hitting it again.
I think the most important thing is listening to yourself and like looking out for those early warning signs. If writing is suddenly no more fun, or if it becomes a chore, or if you're just totally overwhelmed with everything, it's time to like step back and look after yourself. And I'm saying that as if it's like so easy. I was working until 11 p.m. yesterday, and so it doesn't always work that way. But I think it's listening to your body and your mind, because yes, there always seems to be something to do. But once you get to the stage where you're so burnt out that you can't do anything. I mean, I had lots of other health troubles too, but I basically had 2 years where I could do barely any work. And I'd do like a few hours a week before I work like 10 to 12 hours a day. So the contrast was quite extreme. And I had 1 or 2 releases in those 2 years, while before I had a release almost every month. So I think when you feel like you have so much to do, and you're so stressed, step back and think of, well, actually, if I go on like this, I might not be able to do anything. So it's better to be a bit slow with this project and maybe just push back that pre-order or just put that other project on ice until you have the time, because otherwise you'll get to a stage where there's no coming back from, and it's very hard to get back to your normal routine. It's taken me quite a while now to get back to kind of regular working life where there's a balance. And it's hard to get that balance, because there's some days where I'm so excited about projects and I forget to eat and I forget to make myself a cup of tea. And like my partner comes in from work and is like, have you actually had lunch? And oh, is it past lunchtime already? Yeah, it's 6 p.m. So there's definitely those kind of days where I just get lost in my project. But I'm trying to be better. And I think once you've been in burnout and once you've realized what it's like, you do become more careful. And so I think it's all about, finding that balance and just finding the joy in it too, which is why I do crazy projects. I've just released another sentient object romance about a horny sailboat, which is not something that I feel like will have the biggest commercial success. But that's not why I did it. It was for just like a palate cleanser in between, just something random that I wrote for my partner's birthday as a fun thing. Yes, I published it, so it wasn't just a birthday project, and people seem to like it. But I do these kind of fun things which are completely non-money making, or at least don't have any intention of earning royalties with that. But I need that to just reset and like find the fun again, because sometimes when you're in a long project and it just becomes a slog and you're in that soggy middle where it just gets hard to remember why you're doing it, or like what the fun thing about this project was, when there's all these like, other things waiting for you and all the other things you want to do, but actually this book needs to be done first. So that's when I do either kids' books or weird erotica, just as a contrast.
I say that there's always an audience for every kind of book. I have seen a lot of different objects in books as of late. So there's going to be an audience for a horny sailboat for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. You do write under multiple pen names and across like all different genres, as you just mentioned. So how do you decide which ideas belong to which name? Is there like a pattern to that, or is it all random?
In the beginning, it was completely random and I just wrote what I wanted to. I always write what I read. So that's the one thing, maybe with the exception of the picture books. Like I don't read that many of them. But generally, I wouldn't like go out and write, I don't know, a horror book, because I don't write that. So in general, there is a connection between most of my genres, at least within the adult sort of world. In the beginning, I had everything under Skye MacKinnon, and then realized that it was becoming confusing for readers, because I had this dark contemporary romance, and then I had spicy aliens or a romantasy reverse harem, and it was all just a bit too different, and readers weren't following from one book to the next. So now I have my Skye MacKinnon, that's my main name, for anything romance with anything speculative, sci-fi, fantasy, paranormal, urban fantasy, anything that isn't real. And then I have my children's book name, which is easy, very easy to split off into anything for under 18s, basically. And then I have my erotica pen name, which again is easy, anything that isn't romance, but hardcore erotica or weird erotica in my case, gets to that pen name. I do have another romance pen name, which is fairly new, Skye MacDonald, just because Skye was easy, so I kept my first name at least, which is contemporary romance, where I was just thinking it's quite different from shifters, aliens, fantasy. The kind of follow of readers isn't as strong there. So that's why I had a completely separate one. I have another one for cozy mysteries because that was completely, again, different. And I'm writing a crime novel at the moment, which will have another pen name. So it's basically, I ask myself, will the readers follow me to this? Or is this just too out there? Is this too different? I know some authors who will write absolutely everything under one pen name, but I've tried that and it just didn't quite work. I would actually get reviews of people saying, I have read some of Skye's other books, but this is so different, or I didn't like this one because it was not what I was expecting. And that's where I realized, okay, actually, I need to split this up.
Is it challenging? I mean, it must be, to balance the marketing and all of the other aspects that come with being an indie author while having so many different pen names. Like, do you have newsletters for each pen name? Do you have social media for each pen name? How?
In an ideal world, they would all have newsletters and social media, but there's only one of me. I do have an assistant who works on my Skye MacKinnon pen name because that's the main one. So she does all my social media. She deals with newsletter swaps and so stuff like that. So I have a lot less to do for Skye MacKinnon, luckily. I just write my own newsletter and pretty much everything else is up to her. The other pen names, it's kind of having a system that helps. So I always send the newsletters on the same day. So I have a newsletter day where I do all my newsletters across pen names. In the beginning of the month, I sit down and do a social media plan, schedule everything for the month. And that way I don't have to think about all the different pen names all the time. There is a priority list, though. So I've not done enough for my children's pen name, by the way, recently, because the adult ones are just selling better at the moment. And I had to make that kind of financial decision to now come Halloween and Christmas. The picture books will usually overtake my romance. That's the main season for them. And that's when I will put a lot more focus on those. So it's a bit seasonal too. It always depends which pen name has a new release coming up. I try to have at least one newsletter a month, even for the half dormant pen names, while for my main pen name, it's every week. So there is a hierarchy. But I just created a new TikTok account yesterday for one of my other pen names. And even though I absolutely hate TikTok, I'm not a video sort of person. I'm not someone who watches reels. My partner does all day long. But I prefer to read the text. So I always ask for transcripts because I don't process information well when it's in video.
Yeah, adding a TikTok on top of everything else that you're doing that's a lot of work.
I know Skye MacKinnon has had a TikTok for 2 or 3 years and I keep doing a bit and then I realize I just hate this. I don't want to do it. And then I step back. But then one of the old videos will just suddenly get like comments and I'm reminded I should actually be doing something. And then I go back and I have FOMO and it's just an endless chain. I do have Author Scale, which is a great tool, which kind of automatically creates slide videos and now these Kindle screenshots. And that's a big time saver because, I wouldn't have the time to do everything manually. So I love tools and gadgets. I do as much as I can that's automated because, that otherwise I could only cope with 1 or 2 pen names and not as many as I have.
Well, I think the automations, but also the prioritization really speaks to like avoiding burnout that you were speaking to earlier. Like, you're just one person. And so kind of learning the ebbs and flows about your pen names, I imagine really helps with the prioritization and also knowing you can't do everything. So understanding what is the most important thing to do.
Definitely. And I think audiences are different and are on different platforms. So for my picture books, TikTok is not really you can reach some parents, but I've tried. It doesn't work as well. But Instagram is great for it. So it's once you figure out where your audience is hiding, you can target it a lot more rather than trying to do absolutely everything at once. Becca Syme is always great with that. You just need to quit doing everything and prioritize.
I am just curious because a lot of authors that we talk to, it's a very romance-heavy genre that we talk to often. So I'm wondering, where is the audience that you find for kids' books?
It's hard because you're not actually talking to the kids, at least not. I'm doing picture books, so they're not on social media. They don't read newsletters. They don't do things like that. So you're either talking to the parents or the grandparents, or to teachers, to librarians. So I had to completely rethink my targeting there. There is definitely an audience on social media where you find the parents. There's Facebook ads, there's different parent groups, word of mouth, and not influencers as such, but just parents sharing their favorite books, I find the most effective, really. YouTube is another one. And the problem is with YouTube, if you post videos for kids, you can't get comments on them and you can't monetize them. So it's good for some exposure, but you can't utilize it in the same way as I would for adult books, where I put them up there to also earn some money through ads and just get comments, interaction. You don't get any of that, which is a bit weird because you kind of want that feedback. You want to see if people are liking it, and they're not allowed to comment on those kids' videos. But actually for those books, a lot of it is in person too. During the Christmas time, I go to local craft fairs and school fairs with my kids' books. And then it helps a lot because kids are great marketers. They will take a book to kindergarten and show their peers, this is my new favorite book. And then their parents will get it. So actually, it would be great if you could just hire a group of children to do the marketing for you. And but I think that would go against the law. So I am not a proponent of child labor. I would like to highlight that. But yeah, it's a very completely different ball game. I do know quite a lot of kids authors who do school visits. I don't, because I don't drive, and just I'm in the middle of nowhere on the west coast of Scotland. So yes, we've got some local schools and I've done some things there, but once it gets further away, I just can't manage that on a regular basis. One day when I'm rich and famous, I'll have a chauffeur who will get me to all those schools. But for now, I'm doing most things online. But COVID was great for that because I had quite a few inquiries from libraries and schools to do online readings. And that was amazing. Unfortunately, they then now want you all to come in person. But I think it's harder with the kids' books because you can't just post something on TikTok or Instagram for those. You have to address the parents, but then it's hard to know what age kids are for parents. It's much harder in terms of targeting, especially if you want to run ads, because you can just do parents. And then, but yeah, if they have a 16-year-old boy, my little book about pink ghosts might not be the right thing for them. So it's a lot of trial and error.
One thing I find just fascinating is that to relax, like you mentioned, you write your really fun erotica and also kids' books. And I'm curious if there's if they scratch different parts of your brain for relaxation and how you switch your brain from writing spicy reverse harem alien romance to writing about unicorns.
It's a hard one because I never planned to write kids' books. That happened completely by accident. I don't have any children myself. So I wouldn't have had the idea because I thought, okay, you really need either need to experience with working with children or you need to have your own. But I wrote in my Daughter of Winter series, there's a unicorn as a side character, and all my readers absolutely love that unicorn. So at some point, as a Christmas present, I wrote them a short story about the origins of the unicorn, and then I got all these emails back. My kids loved that story. I hadn't written it for kids, but so I had some illustrations done, and that was my first children's book. So I can just dived into that head first without knowing what I was doing, and then had to catch up very quickly and discover how you actually write a children's book after I'd published my first. So don't do it like that. But I think doing the kids' books, it's so back to basics. You still tell a story and still needs to have a beginning, a middle and an end, but you do it in 32 pages for the picture books. And a lot of the time is 500 words. So for an adult book, for my length, that's about a quarter of a chapter. So it's actually helped me in distilling down the elements of a story and still having some tension in there. You still want some humor in there. You want a complete story, but on a kind of miniature scale. But also you can get lots of themes in there that I also cover in my adult books. So mental health, for example, very close to my heart. And I try to cover that in both adult and kids books. So I've got a picture book about a depressed whale, and I've got one about loneliness. I've got one about dementia. And so sometimes topics that I feel very strongly about, or that I think, just kids need to know about too, or for example, dementia. My grandma's got dementia. And I wrote that book when my cousin was saying he doesn't quite know how to tell his son that great-grandma is now a bit different. She might not behave the same that they used to. And that's when I wrote the book. And it helped me so much because as a former science journalist, I'm used to diving into all the research, into the science, looking at research papers and studies, but actually distilling it down to the very basics of grandma is her emotions change. Her memory will not be quite there, but she might remember things that happened a long time ago, and she will talk about those all the time. And just, whittling it down to those really basic things really helped me. And I think that's why I like writing these picture books, because it is about these simple emotions. It's about happiness, friendship, loneliness, just social structures, going kind of against what everyone is telling you to do, or just following your own heart. And I think a lot of those actually happen in my adult books too, but not as clear. Plus the romance kind of distracts from a lot of these themes. So that's why I love doing the picture books. On the complete other end of the spectrum, the erotica, that's really just fun, where I usually come up with a crazy concept and think like, can this actually be done? And then it's an experiment. And most of the time it can be done. Actually, my very first published book, way before I started publishing a Skye in 2017, was a caveman erotica, because someone at university, I think it was 2012 or 2013, had challenged me. I lost a bet and told me I had to write a caveman erotica, and I did. And then I published it. So actually that pen name is a lot older than all the others. I don't generally highlight that because it's a bit embarrassing. But it's just those fun little side projects that don't have much of a purpose. It's just, it gives me that adrenaline boost of, I've pressed the publish button and this is now live and I've actually got a release, while this romantasy that I've been working on for months in the background is just taking its time. But this thing I can write in an afternoon and then it's done and it's out there, and much easier.
Gets the creative juices flowing. So that's amazing.
Exactly.
I wanted to kind of switch lanes a bit, just talk about going wide. So you are a very strong advocate for publishing wide. So sort of in practical terms, what going wide means to you and why you think it's important for other indie authors to check out.
I've been wide ever since I became a full-time author. So I was in KU for my very first year and didn't like it. I mean, I was making good money. It wasn't that. It was the being reliant on only one retailer. I had several co-authors who were being page stripped and lost half their income overnight. And I was at the stage where I had just quit my job. I was moving to a new place, becoming fully self-sufficient with my writing. And I just decided, no, that's not what I want. I don't want them to be able to take away half my income without warning, because I was by myself at the time. I didn't have a partner to support me. What I was earning was all I had. And so it was very important for me to have a sustainable income and a reliable income. And so I heard about this thing called Wide, which in the beginning when I published, I didn't even know. I just did what everyone was doing, which was going to KU. I didn't do the research, which is unlike me. So I went wide, and we always say the whole, don't put your eggs in one basket, but it is exactly that. I have lots of baskets, lots of eggs. I try pretty much every platform that comes across, that I come across. I've been on lots of different apps. I'm trying different formats. I did lots of serialization at some point. I'm doing special editions and Kickstarter and everything I can try. Because even though some of these things might not make me a lot, but it all adds up in the end. And it's, if one of those closes, one of those channels, I still have all the others. About 2 months ago, Amazon closed my account for a bit over 24 hours. It was very scary, but at the moment, Amazon is maybe 30% of my income. And I realized actually, even if they completely close it, I could live well without them, which was a very reassuring realization, because yes, they are a big player. And of course, I don't want to be without them. But if they decide in their infinite wisdom that I have gone against rules that don't exist, or that I still don't know what I actually did, then I'm safe and I can still feed my cats. And so that's why I'm really all for wide. I think though it's not just the retailers, it's also all about the formats, doing print books, doing audiobooks, doing translations, being on apps, but also going to signings and doing real world things. Just as many places as I can get my fingers in. So I got involved in Wide for the Win very early on and have been like part of that ever since. And yeah, you said I'm quite a proponent of that. Yes, I'm very passionate about it because I have seen a lot of authors who were doing really well in KU, and then at some point something happens and they then have to start from scratch again on these other platforms. Because when you've been in KU for a long time and you then suddenly publish on Kobo, you're a new author. Like nobody there knows you, neither the readers nor you as the team. So I think it's good to have even just a few books wide. You don't have to do it with your whole catalogue, but I think it's good to have that as your like sort of emergency breadth of publishing.
I feel like the wide versus exclusive debate is ongoing and will continue to be ongoing until either the end of time or the end of exclusivity. But I'm curious if there are any common misconceptions that you've heard about going wide, any myths that you would like to bust.
One of the things that everyone says is like, there's certain genres or subgenres that only work in KU. And I write, or like one of my main genres is reverse harem and alien romance. Two things that are super KU heavy. But that also means that there's an audience on wide retailers and that you have a bit of a monopoly there, because if 95% of the authors writing alien romance are in KU, that means that visibility on wide retailers for you is much better. And I do see that with some series that sell really well wide and not so well on Amazon, because I just don't have the visibility there. And unless I run ads on Amazon, people there just aren't going to find me because the variety is just so big. And especially just now with AI books coming into those popular niches, it's even getting harder to publish. But I also think a lot of the AI books aren't on wide retailers, so that's a bonus for us. But yeah, so I think that's one myth. Yes, of course, there are genres, subgenres, tropes that are really popular in Kindle Unlimited, but that doesn't mean that they're not popular wide. It's just that you have to try that and see, and sometimes it's an opportunity. It is more work, yes. But when I was in KU, I was running quite a lot of ads to actually get that visibility. And there was always the having to release every 30 days to not fall off Amazon's cliffs. And it was really stressful. And now when I went wide, I realized that actually most of my income comes from my backlist. It's not the new releases. When I didn't release for 2 years, my wide income stayed pretty much the same. Only my Amazon income dipped. And so that was, again, a great realization that my process is clearly working, because my backlist was carrying me, even though I wasn't pushing out new books all the time. And so, yes, it's more work to upload an individual book, because you have to upload it to so many different places. It's a bit more work when you look for promotions. But again, if you have a system, once a week, I go into the Kobo dashboard and look for promotions, and the Barnes & Noble dashboard, and I submit forms to Apple and Draft to Digital. So it's like once you have a system and just do it regularly, it becomes second nature. Same with uploading. I can do that in my sleep now because I know all those platforms. I know what categories they have. So it's a bit more work, especially in the beginning when you learn those platforms and you know that Barnes & Noble has categories that nobody else has. And really cool ones like captured, indentured, and enslaved, which I wish other retailers had, because it's such a cool category. But I think in the end, it's less work in terms of having to do advertising and having to release all the time. But it is more work when you upload and just keep on track of metadata. I mean, I just did new covers for a 9-book series, and that was painful because I'm direct with pretty much every retailer that I can be. So it's a lot of sites to upload things to. But again, I just have some random telly on in the background or some good music, and it works. So I think those are the two things that, I keep telling people that it's not as you think it might be.
And you mentioned that your backlist keeps on keeping on. Do you have any tips for authors to keep their backlist working for them?
I think highlighting it to readers occasionally, not just forgetting about it. I do these book birthdays. So every time one of my books has a birthday, I post about it on social media. And in my newsletter, I will occasionally highlight them. And readers love that. They sometimes send an email back and I haven't read that book in 6 years, but you just made me look at it. Or I never knew you had written that book, even though I've been following you for a while. So it's always fun doing that. Plus, it's nostalgic for me to look at these books that I wrote back in 2017. Box sets is a big one, having not just like full series box sets, but I also have starter series box sets. So I have one for Alien Romance, for example, where it's the first in series and 3 different series to just get people into my backlist and give them different things to try. And yes, they might not like one of them, but they might like the other 2. So I've got one for Rose Harem, one for Aliens, and I think different formats and translations. So I'm working my way through doing translations for all my backlist, which is taking a long time, and across languages. But these books are now, even though they might be old in English, in German, French, Italian, whatever, they're now new releases. And so there is a lot you can do with those existing books. Then promos. I love retailer promos, as well as applying for book pubs and just switching up perma-freeze or doing a time-limited sale. So I'm basically treating my backlist as new releases sometimes and give them the same attention and the same amount of time, because my new releases will be backlisted at some point. And so it helps to just, any material I create during a new release, I then have to just reuse and maybe change slightly, but I've got this whole library now of content that I can just draw from instead of always having to reinvent the wheel and sitting there on the first of the month thinking like, what will I post on social media this month? I don't have a release. No, I can actually look at my calendar, what released 3 years ago today, and then highlight that.
I love that you're letting like not only the backlist of books work for you, but also your backlist of social content. I think that's so smart.
That's something I really realized, that I have this wealth of content when I was doing translations. And in the beginning, I kept writing newsletters for all these new releases from scratch. And at some point I realized I wrote a newsletter for this new release a few years ago when this book came out in English. Why don't I just translate this into German or French? Why do I always have to like spend all this time on trying to even think about what the characters are called in this book, because it's been such a long time. So I could just look at what did I do a few years ago. And so once I realized that, I've been using that a lot more, and also keeping track of everything that I post now and making like media kits, which I always thought was a waste of time because I wasn't going to go to like the media with my books. I don't write that sort of stuff. I don't think any newspaper would be talking about my spicy aliens. So yeah, but if any newspaper is listening, I hereby challenge you. But yeah, I think it's just seeing what kind of property you already have, what kind of content, and then capitalizing on that, and not always making up everything from scratch. That's a big time saver.
I'm glad you talked about translations, because we want to jump into that, because I think it's something that people don't realize very often, that, yeah, you can translate your books. And we have a very international team here, so we love them. But I'm very curious as what your first, what first convinced you to invest in these translations?
I was thinking of it pretty much from the start, because I'm bilingual. And so I was actually thinking of what language should I be writing my books in. But in the end, it was like, well, I only read in English. I speak English all day long, so let's do English. But a few years in, I realized that I'm leaving this this new audience, untapped audience, on the table, because not everyone in the world speaks English as much as we sometimes like to think that. So as an experiment, I actually started with one of my picture books, because that was very short, easy, cheap to translate, and that was a good experiment. And I did German first because I speak German, so I was like, I wasn't going to translate it myself because my grammar isn't that good anymore. But I was able to proofread it at least, and I was able to do the marketing for it. So I did one of my picture books, and it went pretty well. And I took that as a sign, okay, let's do an adult series. Again, because I was still a bit unsure whether the investment would be worth it, because translations are not cheap. I went with one series that is 7 books, but because of the way I wrote it, after the first 4 books is kind of a cutoff point. So I could have stopped the series there and readers would have been satisfied. And so I thought that's safer. It was also my best-selling series at the time, but if it had gone wrong, I could have just stopped after 4 books and nobody would have complained. But yeah, that did so well and actually outsold some of the English originals that I then decided, okay, let's do more languages. And I've been doing translations ever since. I've now got, for my adult books, I've got German, French, Italian. For my kids' books, I've also got some in Spanish and Dutch. Basically, as soon as I have one translation done, I'm commissioning the next. So it's been going on for that for a while now. My German translator wants to retire and has been for a while, and I'm preventing her from that until she's got all my backlist done. She hasn't quite realized that my backlist keeps growing because I add to it. So hopefully I have her for many years to come still, even if I'm her last and only client. But yeah, it's been really fun because, just like I said earlier, when you go wide after being a KU, you're a new author again. You have to build that audience again. And it's exactly the same with translations. Yes, some people in Germany or France or wherever might also read in English and they might know you, but that's a tiny percentage. So actually the people you address with your translations are the ones who don't want to read the original or can't read the original. And so it's starting from scratch, except that you already have the knowledge that you've built. So it's a lot faster because you know what a newsletter is, you know how to build one, you know what good back matter looks like, you know what good covers look like. But you do still have to do the research, because I think the biggest mistake I see people doing is just assuming that everything in the other language is going to be the same. Like, you can just keep your cover, you can have your blurb written in the same way, you can just even keep everything in the story the same. And sometimes you do need to make some changes for the target market, especially with covers. In Germany, for example, so many of the covers are completely different, especially in romance. Sadly, because I like my Manchester covers occasionally for the aliens, but you don't see that much Manchester over there. They all like abstract and florals and pastels, and they're gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. They're all like our special editions in English. But yeah, it's a different style. And so you do need to look at your target market and see what they're doing, because otherwise you immediately look like a translation. And I think some people don't care and they just want to get it out and not bother with it. I've always wanted to have my books as good in the target language or in like a translated language as I have them in the original language. And yeah, so I strive for perfection, even though I know my books are not perfect, but at least I strive for it.
That was going to be one of my questions, is because you have so many books and backlists and so many different tropes and genres, how do you determine whether or not your book is a good fit for another language market? Because there's so many different genres out there, and you know, our French team reads different than our English team. So how do you decide what works?
Part of it was just looking at the market and like looking at French retailers, German retailers, seeing what is trending there, what works there clearly, looking at what both indie authors and trad publishers there are doing, but also looking at my sales and just seeing where my current books are selling. And if one series, for example, is selling in France all the time, even the English originals, then I'm assuming that that might also be doing well as a translation. So it's a mix of both my own data, but also just looking at the market as a whole. Another thing is evergreen content. So things like vampires will probably never quite go out of trend, while spider monsters might be a bit more niche. Or right now, I keep seeing minotaurs, and I think that's a really cool trend, but I'm not sure how long lasting that will be. So quite often I will look at, what will probably still sell in 10 years to come. And so the kind of more generic sort of tropes and genres, rather than going super specific and super trendy, because trends change and are very different. And things like romantasy actually existed in Germany before it did in the UK or in the English-speaking market. They had that as a genre way before us, even though it's an English term. And so trends move in both ways, but you can't predict that really. So evergreen is a better idea, at least from the start. And then once you run out of evergreen books, then it's time to go for the more tropey, niche-y ones.
You've mentioned your alien romances a couple of times, and these, or some of your alien romances, exist in a much larger universe, also known as the Intergalactic Dating Agency, which is a multi-author project in a multi-author universe. How did this co-owned universe come about, and what is the process of actually organizing and publishing with so many different authors?
Good question. It's been running for 11 years. We're in our 11th year this year. We had our big 10-year anniversary last year. Now, I've not been doing this for 11 years, sadly, but it basically started as a group of alien sci-fi authors coming together and deciding that sometimes it helps to not just cross-promote your existing books, but get together and create a brand of something that is where readers know exactly what they get. And because us as authors, we can never write fast enough for readers to satisfy their hunger. And so by lots of authors giving readers the same sort of book, but with a different spin from each author, they were hoping to reach more readers than they ever could by themselves. So every autumn we publish a trilogy each. It's always alien romance. It's the Intergalactic Dating Agency, as you said. So there's some kind of dating agency aspect. But every author has their own dating agency. So for some, that is a space agency. For some, it's based on Earth. For some, it's like online. For some, it's like a speed dating thing. There's lots of different variations. But there's always a dating agency. There's always aliens involved. But that's pretty much it. We don't have like super strict rules like some other shared worlds where it's all like the same setting or the same sort of relationships. We're quite open with that on purpose. They are quite short generally, where they're all novellas. Our average is about 30k per book, so they're quite fast reads, the kind of book you take on the bus or in the bathtub or like in between. But because of that, and because we release at least 2 a week, there's always something for readers to like dive into next. Last year, we also did a 10-year anniversary anthology or box set, which was fun. But yeah, we publish, this year it's 6 authors are participating. So we've got 18 books in total, 6 per month. So we're doing 6 in September, October, November. And we usually try to get retailers involved because we're all wide. Most of the authors are like completely wide or at least partially with their catalogue, so which helps in building our audience. We've got a website. We don't have a newsletter yet, but that's something I'm thinking of introducing this year to just strengthen that brand a bit, especially after last year's anniversary. We've done various things with like special promotions but yeah, it's just a fun thing of like us authors getting together and having fun with one of the tropes we love. We have a chat where we were discussing what we're doing this year in terms of what kind of aliens, because there's such a variety in possible aliens. And even just having that chat was just so much fun because we're all so passionate about it, but we're all so quirky and weird. And so I've now got blood-sucking gargoyle aliens that live on Scottish castles, obviously. So, but we've got, some really fun aliens coming up this year. And it's amazing how even after 11 years, it's always different each year. We had actually thought about changing our covers because we always use the same cover designer so that they all look similar. We've had Manchester for a long time now. And this year I was thinking, maybe we should go with the illustrated style that is quite popular in monster and alien romance at the moment. We didn't do it for this one. Maybe next year. We'll see. But yeah, we always, on one hand, we try to stay quite close to the original idea, but we also do new things occasionally. So we've been featured on Kobo, luckily. We've had our own landing page and things like that. So we try to experiment with different things of like, just increasing our intergalactic audience. But yeah, it's a fun project. And I love doing things like that with working with other authors because writing can be quite a solitary job. And I mean, as I said, I'm in the middle of nowhere. There is one other author actually in the village next door, but that's just a weird coincidence. Otherwise, it's quite hard to find your tribe in real life. So it's good to have that online and to just have that support. And sometimes in our group, we'll just ask general questions about what is working for that genre at the moment, even not relating to the IDA itself. And so it's great to have that like as a network of authors who all write the same thing.
And there are endless aliens. I feel like you guys could go on for years and years and years.
Hopefully we will.
Yeah, fingers crossed. You've been in the industry for a while, so I'm just wondering what are some of the biggest changes that you've maybe witnessed as your time as an indie author, since you've always been a wide author? Just, any changes or different themes that have happened between other authors?
I think right now, in the last few years, the authors becoming more of a business and selling direct and becoming actually hiring people for themselves, not just an assistant, but actually people for logistics and way more things that you usually associate with being an author. I think that's something, especially at the top end of the kind of author scale, where people have warehouses now and are just doing this entire empire building. Where in the past we used to rely a lot on retailers and just them doing the selling for us. And now a lot of us are experimenting at least with direct sales, both at events, but also through websites and Kickstarter and things like that. So I think that's one big thing that is changing, where we've just realized that we have that ability to be more than just a kind of digital author who just writes and uploads to different platforms, but actually we can do this entire business thinking. Then, of course, there's AI. I can't not mention that. And I'm quite a pro AI author in a way that it helps me a lot to organize my business and automate things and just keep track of everything. But I also see the threat of it and how it's erasing our voice in cases and just raising visibility. And I'm both excited and scared to see how it will develop in the next few years, whether being an author will even still be a job in 5 years from now. I mean, fingers crossed. And I think that's where having a personality, like being not just an anonymous sort of author who just writes their books, throws them out there and writes the next one, but going to signings and events, of having a newsletter that is personable, of like talking to your readers. I think that's going to become more and more important, because everyone now can just ask Claude or ChatGPT or whatever to write a book. It might not be good, but they can write it and put it out there. But it's all about the branding, just being a human. I think that's the important part that is going to become even more crucial, which is why I think platforms like Kickstarter and crowdfunding, where you have to present yourself as a person and that product as something special. I mean, that's these special editions. Again, it's something AI authors are not going to do, because there's a lot of work and a lot of expenses. So I think we just have to specialize more in those things that not everyone is going to do. And keep an open mind, I think, in whatever formats will come next, because everything is changing so fast at the moment. It's very hard to keep track of everything that is happening. But yeah, I think that's, the whole international, multilingual, so many people are doing translations now. And I think it is easier to reach international audiences. And I think we're just becoming more aware of it. For a long time, that used to be out of reach for most authors. And now it's becoming something that is easier to do. And there's more guidance on it. And there's groups on Facebook where people talk about translations and how to do it. And so when I started, there was nothing. And I mean, ended up writing a guide for German translations because there wasn't one and I wanted one. And so I wrote one myself. That's exactly how I started writing in general. I wanted to read more reverse harem, and there weren't enough being released at the time because that was a completely new genre. And so I wrote my own. So it seems to be a pattern somehow.
I feel like being excited and scared is just like the baseline of being an indie author, because things change so quickly and there's always a new platform, new tools. Do you have any advice for newer authors on how to ride these waves of change? Because even before the wave of AI, like new things were always popping up.
I think it's being open to everything, but not necessarily thinking like you have to jump on every single bandwagon. You don't have to be a first adopter for everything, because you'd never get anything done. It's about thinking, what do you actually need? Do you need this new tool just now, or are you quite fine with your current process? And is it something to like look at in the future? But you don't need to do everything in the beginning. You don't need to start a translation when you've just published your first book. There's a time and a place for everything. And I think that's with all these shiny new tools. I just want to jump on everything. But I do have to stop myself sometimes and just think, like, do I actually have the capacity just now, both in terms of brain cells, but also time, money, just resources of doing that? Or is it just okay to sit back, see what's happening first? Because there have been so many apps, for example, that I signed up for, published some stuff on there, and then the apps went dead a year later. So sometimes I wish I had waited, because sometimes there's a lot of work for not much return. And it's not always about money, but even just about the visibility of readers. Like if an app had 1,000 people in total, and that's not made up, why did I even bother? I'm sure these 1,000 people were lovely, and I'm sure they all loved seeing the books on there, but the amount of hours I put into uploading my books were not quite equal to the return. So sometimes it's quite good to just think and see what stage you are at in your journey, because yes, everything is really fun and attractive, but you don't have to do everything in the very beginning, and you don't have to do everything in the middle either. And even if you're at the very top of your game, you can't ever do everything. That's just impossible. So it's all about, I think, thinking what is good for me, both in terms of my business, but also just what do I want to do. Like I said earlier, I really don't like TikTok. So it's something, yes, I've got an account and I'm doing these mostly automatically generated things, but I'm not going to sit there and do an hour of creating videos every day for that, because I don't want to, and that's okay. And sometimes that's just, you have to give yourself permission to say no and to just step back and just, yes, you might get FOMO, but it will pass. Just get yourself a cup of tea and some ice cream and you will be fine.
I personally don't think AI can write a horny sailboat book, but that's just me. So what are you working on next?
Lots of things. I'm working on my first crime novel just now, which is actually, I'm doing a master's at uni at the moment. And that's part of my dissertation, is writing a crime novel, which is really exciting because it's something I've always wanted to do. I read a lot of crime and I watch a lot of crime. And at some point I was like, why don't I write this? Because it's clearly what I like. I've got about 3 different kids' books on at the same time, which are mostly written, where I'm just in the illustrating stage now, which always takes the longest. I am working on my new intergalactic dating agency series, The Gargoyles. I've just got my first cover, and so I'm extra excited now to start writing them properly. I've got a dragon romantasy, and I also have a Bear Shifter Mountain Man trilogy that I'm halfway done with. My readers don't even know about that yet, but I just, again, got the cover, so there's going to be a cover reveal very soon. I'm very excited because one of my very first series was Bear Shifters, and I always feel like they're the underdogs. Everyone does werewolves or now dragons. There's not enough bears out there, so I decided to do another series, but putting them all in kilts and having them in the Highlands. So yeah, I like putting a new spin on things, and quite often it's something to do with Scotland because, yeah, why not?
I love that you were doing all of this on top of doing your master's. That is wild. Congrats. That's so cool.
I'm not saying it actually works. Like, my dissertation deadline is approaching way faster than it should. I'm not sure what's happening there.
Time always slips away. Oh, Skye, we genuinely could sit and keep chatting for hours, but unfortunately we do have to let you go. But where can listeners find you online if they want to learn more about you, your books, or read about a horny sailboat?
Well, Skye MacKinnon is my main name. I do have a page specifically for authors, which is skyemackinnon.com/authors. If you want a horny sailboat, you'll have to look for Philomena MacKinnon. She's my, weird alter ego. There is Isla Wynter, Winter with a Y, because I just like to make things difficult for myself. She does the children's books. So if you have kids or grandchildren, absolutely adorable picture books. Then there's Skye MacDonald now as my contemporary, cozy Highlander romances, which have been doing amazingly in Germany, not so well in English. It's just shows you how different things can be across translations.
But we will include links to all of the above in our show notes to make sure people can find exactly what they're looking for. And Skye, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today.
Thank you so much. I hope we don't have to wait another 8 years until the next time.
Same. Thank you for listening to the Kobo Writing Life podcast. If you are interested in picking up Skye's books, we will include links in our show notes. If you are enjoying this podcast, please be sure to rate, review, and subscribe, and recommend us to your friends. And if you're looking for more tips on growing your self-publishing business, you can find us on socials. We are at Kobo Writing Life on Facebook, Blue Sky, Instagram, and Threads.
This episode was hosted by Rachel Warden and Vanessa Salemi, with production by Terrence Abrahams. Editing is provided by Kelly Robotham. Our theme music is composed by Teardripper, and thank you to Skye for being a guest. If you're ready to start your publishing journey, sign up today at kobo.com/writinglife. Until next time, happy writing.